What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Triple Z podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah Henry. We have the Detroit Pistons versus the Boston Celtics, and I'm pretty sure this game exceeded everyone's expectation because clearly you have the best team in the Boston Celtics and you have the worst team in the Pistons, who have lost 27 games in a row. Most people would think it's an easy win for Boston, probably going to be a 20-point blowout. Let's go on to the next game, but that wasn't the case in this game because Boston really struggled for a good portion in this basketball game, especially in the first half. We know Boston's a team that likes to make and take a lot of three-point shots, but they shot only 4 of 24 from the three-point line in the first half. They had some careless turnovers, 10 in the first half as well. The production off the bench was mediocre a little bit, only 8 points, and Tatum really struggled to score the basketball, going 5 of 14 from the floor, 2 of 8 from the three-point line, 16 points inefficiently. And this is also a game without Jaylen Brown. So other players like Hauser, Pritchard, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Al Horford, Porzingis has to step up to the plate. For Detroit, they played very well in the first half. Cade Cunningham scored 22 points, 9 of 13 from the field. He was able to get inside the lane, score inside, hit his mid-range shot, knock down a couple of three-point shots as well. Also able to set up his teammate with his playmaking. Detroit did a great job of just getting into the lane and finishing at the rim. A lot of that was due to their offensive rebounding. They got a solid production off their bench with 17 points. And at the end of the first half, Detroit has a 19-point lead on the best team in the NBA, 66-47. So Boston is under some pressure because you don't want to be that team that lets the Pistons off the hook. Cam Thomas said a couple days ago or a week ago in an interview saying you don't want to be that one team that lose to Detroit, basically. You don't want to be that one team. You don't want to be the team that they finally get a win on after losing 27 games in a row. So Boston's under some pressure. They needed to pick up the slack in the third, and rightfully so they did. They started the third quarter on a run that was much needed for them to find their rhythm offensively and defensively. They did much better on both ends of the basketball. They outscored the Pistons 35-16 and forced Detroit to have 6 turnovers in the third quarter. Cade Cunningham was really quiet in the third quarter, wasn't really looking for a shot, wasn't as aggressive as he was in the first half where he scored 22 points. Derek White and Jason Tatum did a great job of getting the crowd back into the game because in the first half, the Celtics fans were booing the Boston Celtics players, and I understand where they're coming from because they're pretty much disappointed. We're the best. They also have the mindset that we're the best team. We shouldn't even be down a single point to the worst team that's lost 27 games in a row. But it's basketball, anything can happen. So Boston fans were actually booing the Boston Celtics players, but Jason Tatum and Derek White did a great job of just picking up the momentum for themselves, their team, and the crowd to get involved in this game. So they were going off in the third quarter as well. And at the end of the third, we have a tie ball game, 82-82, going into the fourth quarter. And Boston, since they started to pick it up in the third, it flowed right into the fourth quarter. Derek White did a little bit of everything to start the fourth quarter, scoring the first 6 points. His playmaking was really helpful in this game. His pick and roll situation with Porzingis really helped get Boston a lot of easy buckets at the rim. Defensively, Derek White was amazing. I think this is his 5th game in a row with 2 blocks. Just having that alone from your point guard is absolutely outstanding. Porzingis played really well down the stretch, whether it was spacing the floor, hitting the outside shot, taking advantage of the mismatches at the top of the key, finishing at the rim with contact. He played absolutely great. But even after all that, the third quarter for the Boston Celtics and the fourth, Detroit is still hanging in this game. Burke is knocking down some threes. Bojan getting to his spot and knocking down some threes as well. I hope I said his name right. Bojan? That's how I saw it, so I'm going to say Bojan. And offensive rebounding is what's really helping Detroit stay in this basketball game, whether it was Jalen Duren or Jaden Ivey or Cade or Bojan. Offensive rebounding is what is the aspect that really kept Detroit in this game. And coming down to the final minutes, it's 106-100. Boston's up by 6. And Jaden Ivey, low-key, kind of goes on a run by himself, gets into the lane, gets the and one on Porzingis, knocks down the free throw line, and a couple possessions later, he knocks down an open 3 and forces the game to be 106-106. Now, probably the most interesting call of the night, the goaltending call. Jason Tatum gets the ball, spins to his left side, tries to finish with his left hand, but Cade blocks it, and it's called a goaltending. But it took some time for the referees to review the call because it was really, 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 really close. I mean, I wouldn't have been shocked if they said, we can't make a decision on this because we don't know if it touched the glass or Cade got it before it hits the glass, before the basketball hits the glass. So I thought it was probably going to be a jump ball, but it wasn't. And looking at it very, very closely, I could also be wrong on this, but I thought it hit the glass first, and then Cade just a millisecond after, tipped the ball to get the block. So it was the best decision called. It was the right play called by the referees. But it's 108, 106. The Pistons still have 8.7 seconds left. Cade gets the ball, shoots it a little bit early. I can understand why he shot it early, because if you get the ball and kind of settle a little bit, you give Boston the opportunity to settle defensively, and you don't want to do that against the Boston Celtics when they have Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Al Horford, Porzingis. You do not want the Boston Celtics to settle into their defense. So I understand why Cade got it, went to the corner. He was defended by Drew Holiday. He shot it. I saw it was a little short, but then offensive rebounding. Bojan came out of nowhere. Derek White missed the opportunity to box out, and Bojan gets the rebound and tips it back in, and now it's 108. Boston still has a couple seconds. I think they have roughly 4 seconds. You know the ball's going to Jason Tatum. You know he's going to get to his spot. He gets to his spot, he shoots it and misses it, and we're going into overtime. Here's a scenario about overtime. Boston is 0-3 in overtime, and Detroit is 0-0 in overtime. Obviously, because, 27 games lost in a row, you don't really have the chance to go into overtime. That's not the hero there. But I'm thinking it's a fair game, and for a second, I'm thinking to myself, Detroit might pull this out. They might get the win over the best team in the NBA and break their losing streak of 27 games in a row. They're staying in this game with their offensive rebounding, but that's what really kept the Pistons in this game, their offensive rebounding. But what really took them out of the game was their turnovers and giving Boston so many opportunities to score the basketball easily. I mean, there was a couple possessions where Derek White got the ball, got out in transition. Nobody really looked to stop the ball, and he was able to finish at the rim. There was another play where Boston shot it. I believe Kristaps Porzingis got the offensive rebound, took it back out to the top of the key. Derek White was under the basket, not defended by any defenders from the Pistons, and he was living rent-free under the basket, and he was able to lay the ball in. So I thought Detroit had a lot of missed opportunities in order to make this game much closer and have it a fair ball game in overtime. So that's what really hurt Detroit in this game as well. They did a great job of getting offensive reboundings, whether they were fully grabbing the basketball for the offensive rebound or just tipping it back out to the top of the key. But it was their turnovers and just a lack of awareness of where Boston players were on the court, which really hurt them. Something that stood out to me in this game was Boston had 10 turnovers in the first half. They finished the game with 12, meaning in the second half and overtime, they only had 2 turnovers. If I remember correctly, Detroit, I believe, had single-digit turnovers, 8 or 9. And in the second half and overtime, they finished with 16. So they were much more sloppy with the basketball. And for the Boston Celtics, they were much more careful with the basketball, only having 2 turnovers. So I thought that was the difference maker in this basketball game. And Boston avoids embarrassment by winning 129-122, meaning Detroit loses 28 games in a row, which is sad, honestly. I mean, they were right there in it. And I don't know, man. 28 games in a row, that's rough. That is absolutely rough. Player of the game, though. Player of the game, I'm going to say I'm between 2 players, but I'm probably going to pick them both. Kristaps Porzingis and Derek White. Porzingis had 35 and 8. Derek White had 23, 4, 5, and 2 blocks. I mean, those two really stepped up knowing that Jaylen Brown won't be in this game. So for them to step up and get the win and help Boston get the win over the worst team, I mean, it was a pretty necessary performance from those 2 players. But thank you guys for listening to the Triple Z podcast. Please like and subscribe to the channel and let me know down in the comment section when you think Detroit will finally get their next win this season.